Hello heroes, my name is Cartel and welcome to my channel where I talk about flesh and blood. If you've been subscribed to me for a while, thank you for coming back. I'm so glad that you're here. But if you're new here, welcome to my channel and why not click like and subscribe so that you can stay updated with all of the things that I've been putting out. This video is going to be more of a hodgepodge kind of thing, so there's no specific topic, but there's a main one that I will be talking about in a bit. First, I'd like to showcase this item that I got from the mail, which is the official resource counter for Flesh and Blood. Now, for those of you who watched my previous video, you would know that I attended the Pro Quest in Scry Game Cianat in Antipolo, Rizal. You'd also know that I did not win. My Arakni deck got 1 win, 2 losses, and 3 draws. So I was not able to get any prizes. One of those prizes is one of these official metal resource counters, and they were awarded to the top 24 if I remember correctly. Someone sold his resource counters over the Facebook group of us fab players here in the Philippines, and I jumped on it immediately because I really like how the counter looks like. This official counter is made in New Zealand and is made of metal, and as you can see here in the separate video that I shot, it looks well crafted. Amazing. And as you can see, there's only like 1 and 2 here from one side to another. That's because you won't have any other situations where there's going to be 3 resources floating around anyway. So yeah, I'd be using this from here on out. And to Kyle Vargas, who sold this to me, thank you so much and happy Chinese New Year. Let's put this aside for a while, and now let's talk about my next topic, which is the Arakni deck's performance in the Armory event that occurred a few days after the Pro Quest. Now, for those of you who watched my very first video, you'd know that my Arakni deck that I used in Pro Quest had a different form, and I adjusted it so that I could be more efficient and optimized in Pro Quest. However, after Pro Quest Season 3, I realized that the Arakni deck is a tad too slow. What does that mean? It means that I tend to draw games more than actually winning them. And for those of you who've been in the tourney circuit for a while now, know that winning is much more important than drawing. And so I adjusted my deck to deal more damage than the usual and cut out some of the cards that tend to be on the defensive side of things. And I tried that in the Armory event that happened in the Wednesday after Pro Quest. And that Armory event was held in Roleplay Game Lounge located in Pasig. And as you can see here in the video that I shot, it's a really nice place. It has this blue tint to it. The vibe is really nice. There's also a nice barbecue spot across the road. So after or during breaks in the games, you can like eat first before coming back in to play more games. And it has a really nice community around it as well. And if you're from around Pasig and you really want to learn how to play Flesh and Blood, why not give Roleplay Lounge a visit? It's located in the Raphael Condo. It's located near Juan San Miguel, if you're familiar with that place. I'm just going to link the Facebook page here in the description below. Now, going back to the topic of the Armory event, I think I placed 3rd and I tied with someone because both of our names were called together after the first placer and the second placer were called, and our pictures were taken. So I assume that I did place 3rd. If you were there during the Armory event, you can feel free to correct me, but I do have a 1 win and 2 loss record during that day. The 3 matches that I had during that day were against Dash, against Icelander, and against Viserai. I won against Dash, unsurprisingly, and lost against Icelander and Viserai. I realized that Viserai is a really potent enemy in both CC and Blitz, and it's really surprising. I was overwhelmed despite equipping several null rune items. It's just madness. With Dorinthia, I did not expect to win anyway, so I think the loss was merited. It almost went to draw, but I'd rather just finish it fast. I kept asking for time though, just in case we accidentally draw the match, because I'm just gonna throw it and give it to the win to the opponent anyway, because I know that I'm not gonna win. So my learnings during that Armory event was, despite throwing in damage buffs to my deck, Arakni still isn't someone that should go tall or go wide when it comes to damage. What Arakni really wants to do still is to get their contracts running. I will talk about those contracts in a future video and how you could play them properly. But for now, what I'm gonna tell you is that the key to a successful Arakni deck is to find certain ways to get those contracts through. Of course, that also sometimes means that you have to buff the damages of those contracts. Yes, that is true. But there are also several ways to go around that, which again, I will talk about in the future video that I will be posting here. But for now, that's my Armory report. I am actually shooting this video a few hours before attending another Armory event, which is a commoner event. I'm not gonna tell you yet what deck I'll be bringing, but you will be seeing that deck list and my Armory report for the commoner event sometime next week or the week after that. That's it for my Arakni reports, and for now, we're going to discuss the main topic for this video, which is the recent banned and restricted announcement from Legend Story Studios. So they posted this announcement around 8 hours ago from the time of shooting this video, and I'd like to say that the changes to the meta are gonna be very interesting. So there are 2 banned cards and 2 suspended cards. Belittle and Winter's Wail are both banned, and Amulet of Ice and Hypothermia are both suspended until Icelander becomes Living Legend. First, let's talk about Winter's Wail, which is a hammer which has 4 attack power and requires 3 resources in order to attack. However, if the card that you pitched for these resources is an ice card, Winter's Wail is an additional effect which adds a Frostbite token under your opponent's control. Now this elemental guardian weapon only has one hero that uses it, which is Oldheim. Now Oldheim has consistently performed well in tournaments all over the world, and despite the metagame being very diverse, there's a whole lot of hero representation going on in the tournaments worldwide. Matter of fact, here in ProQuest Season 3 in Scry Games, the top 8 heroes are very, varied. But despite that, the metagame seems to just revolve around 3 heroes: Icelander, Oldheim, and Fi. Oldheim and Icelander are both ice heroes and are known to debilitate their opponent while gaining tempo for themselves, while Fi, on the other hand, is known to go wide and beat up opponents and not give them much of a chance to block. Going back to Winter's Wail, it is Oldheim's source of constant disruption towards the opponent. Those Frostbite tokens are very painful when it comes to figuring out an efficient gameplay from the opponent's end. This means that if you're on the receiving end of these Frostbite tokens, you're gonna have a hard time, because eventually you will find yourself pitching additional resources just to get your activated abilities and cards through. This kind of gameplay and tactic, of course, is very valid and is completely viable for tournament play. However, there comes a time that there's just too much of it going on in the metagame. I remember one time when I had to face 2 Icelanders in a row, and that was my very first Armory event. There's just so much value in swinging really hard and making it hard for your opponent to swing back as hard or harder. And even so, there are still viable guardian weapons out there, like say Anothos or Sledge of Anvilheim. It really just depends on whether you want to equip a shield or not, but in any case, Oldheim will still be powerful in the metagame despite not having his hammer. And it will present a nice deck building challenge for all of the Oldheim players and a nice way to shake up the Oldheim matches that you will be facing in the future. Now let's talk about how Legend Story Studios nerfed Icelander through the suspension of Hypothermia and Amulet of Ice. Now for those of you who have already faced Icelander or are piloting an Icelander deck, you'd know how strong she is, especially while wielding her signature weapon, Waning Moon. And of course, you would also know that she is very consistent in stopping their opponent dead in their tracks. Now in particular, if you're a ninja and you're facing Icelander, you might as well scoop, just because of this one card of hers called Hypothermia. Now Hypothermia is an affliction aura that makes you unable to cast any go again attack during your turn. Now Now all of you of course know how crippling that is for all of those decks that rely on Go Again in order to get their attacks through. Ninjas, Dash, all of them. They are all crippled by that one card. But yeah, Hypothermia really just shuts down that Go Again tactic completely. Now of course, a similar thing goes with Amulet of Ice, in which it also disrupts your opponent's plans, but it's more of a late game kind of thing. You just put these items somewhere here in the arena and then you let it sit. And then when the time comes, you force your opponent to either discard a card or pay resources. Hypothermia and Amulet of Ice are really potent tools in order to stop aggro dead in their tracks, and so it's completely understandable for Legend Story Studios to do something about them before the season ends. Now with both Oldheim and Icelander losing access to their strong anti-aggro cards, does that mean that ninjas are just gonna dominate the meta now? Maybe not, because the next card that was banned is Belittle. Now for those of you who has already been playing this game for a while now, you'd know that Belittle has been banned in Commoner before. It's just a really crazy card, because when you cast Belittle, you also fetch the card called Minnowism. Now matter of fact, a lot of aggro decks just build around these two cards. Particularly ninjas, particularly Fi. Now ninjas, as you know, depend on having really long combat chains, and having these two cards in your deck guarantees that you will always consistently get long and powerful chains every single turn. Fetching Minnowism also helps in deck thinning, and pitching blue Minnowism also helps you come up with the resources in order to play more degenerate cards in your combo if you're an aggro player. In other words, having both of these cards in an aggro deck just makes it very efficient, very consistent, and very threatening, to the point of having very little variance in all of the aggro decks in the metagame and making for a metagame with very little growth. As for Blitz and Commoner, no new cards have been banned or suspended just yet. My initial reaction when I first read the banned and suspended announcement this morning was, the hell? Because I just bought Minnowism and Belittle last week, and now they're gone. They're just banned. So I think I'll just use them for Blitz. Oh, and Ultimate Pit Fight. But my Ultimate Pit Fight deck is gonna be OG, which I'm gonna be talking about somewhere maybe next month. It all depends on when all my cards are gonna arrive, because they're gonna come from Singapore. I was also glad that Oldheim and Icelander were dealt with, because in my experiences in facing them, it's really difficult to get through them. However, I do acknowledge that I only faced those two heroes at least 10 times each in both online and face-to-face matches. But having piloted an Icelander deck myself, I completely understand why Hypothermia and Amulet of Ice were both dealt with. Having said that, there's still a lot of other options that I could pick in order to replace those two cards that were gone. I, however, am not planning to assemble an Icelander deck for Classic Constructed, because I already have a pet hero, Arakni. So that's it. That's the banned and suspended announcement coming from Legend Story Studios. What do you think of it? Do you agree? Do you disagree with it? Are you an Oldheim, Icelander, or Fi player that got hit by the bans? Do you think that there's still other cards out there that should have been banned? Do you think that some of those 4 cards should not have been banned or suspended? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can stay updated with this channel's content. So that's it for now. My name is Cartel. So long, heroes. See you in the battlefield.